Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits Encounters video. Once again, I'm mixing this one in here while I'm continuing with your Mafia and Gangster suggestions. This one has to do from the reddit.com website there from the subreddit called Experiencers. The reason why I wanted to include this one here is because apparently it has to do with a ghostly encounter there in a cemetery. I've been to several cemeteries in the past and I have one experience to share from it. So that's why I wanted to showcase this here, because after reading what this encounter was, I'll be happy to share my own experience and at least see if anyone else has any other type of experiences as well. It comes from a user by the name of Kishnish, and they titled theirs as First Time Seeing a Ghost. So let's go ahead and let's share their encounter here. And maybe some of you out there that are fellow ghost hunters, if you have any other type of encounters also in the world of cemeteries, then let me know as well. So here's what they state. I just want to premise this with honesty. I have never believed in ghosts, though do enjoy reading all of your stories and have never seen anything compelling, ghost related at least, in my 26 years on this earth before this point. I say this so that you know where I'm coming from. I'm not a believer, I'm a skeptic, and yet I can't explain what I saw or felt. So the long-winded story. Last week, I went out for a drive with a mate around 7 p.m. It had just started to get dark when we decided to park up and go for a walk around some nice UK fields, as it was a warm evening. We stopped alongside a graveyard, incredibly cliche, I know, and as soon as I exited the car, I saw what could only be described as a human-shaped, unmoving shadow/black mass in the distance, perhaps 50 feet away. I stared at it for a second and immediately turned to my mate and said, "What's that?" as I generally thought it was a person who might be having or be in trouble. He replied that it was a lamppost. Now, he wasn't wrong. There was indeed a lamppost there, but that was at least 25 feet further back behind this thing I was referring to. He couldn't see what I was seeing. Now, the thing remained there until we had walked out of sight. It was fixed in its place. Otherwise, I would have instantly dismissed it as something being wrong with my eyes if it had disappeared when looking back. I joked that I saw a ghost, and that was that. I had a strange feeling, but chalked it up to the atmosphere of it being almost dark near a graveyard, etc. After about 10 minutes into the walk, and we were trudging through the woods with no light, trying our best not to walk into anything, we reached an opening and I go ahead as I needed to pee. After returning across the open field to meet my mate, who was at the seating area, what I can only describe as that shadow was there again, this time up close. It was like we walked past each other, like when you brush shoulders with someone going in the opposite direction in a busy street and catch each other's eye. I flinched, stopped, and looked at this thing for a second time as it passed me, and although I could see no discernible facial features, I got the distinct feeling that it saw me too. It wasn't a literal verbal voice, call it telepathy for ease of explanation, but the feeling I got was that it said, "I know you can see me," almost in a cheeky way. When I turned my head again in disbelief, it was gone. Nothing to be seen but a very dimly lit field with no landmarks, trees, etc. I couldn't have been mistaking it for something real. I was pretty disturbed at this point, but didn't want to embarrass myself, and so I went back to my mate and said again that I had seen something but turned it into a joke. One other bonus thing from the same walk, which may be totally unrelated, but this definitely was real and not imagined. After the second sighting, I walked back to the metal pavilion seating area covered in graffiti where my mate was waiting for me. I said to him, trying to make small talk after being freaked out just a minute prior, "It could be funny if we wrote our phone numbers alongside the others to see who may call, but I don't have my pin." And so my mate then reaches up to the edge of the roof as if he was going to climb it, and a pin drops over the edge. Me and my mate were both pretty weirded out by the serendipity. We then added our numbers like idiots. It felt rude not to after the universe gave us a pin, haha. All around a very weird day for me. And that was that. We walked back to the car and I went home. Nothing has happened since. Thanks for reading this wall of text. I never was very good at shortening my essays. Interested to hear your explanations and opinions. And then that's it. That's everything associated with the user Kishnish. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. As you can see, it was a ghostly encounter, in this case, a shadow person, a black mass, something that was there within the graveyard or cemetery, as he called it, somewhere there in the UK. You can always tell, obviously, because they keep saying mate instead of friend. And so the way it happened was they were there immediately. He got out of the car, and then that's where it was. It was just staring right at him. And if it wasn't once, it was twice. The second time was when he was in another area, this time more towards the woods. And then that's where it seemed like this thing was almost brushing his shoulder as it was walking past. Now, he stated it was just a solid black mass. He couldn't see anything, no eyes, no discernible face, but he clearly got the distinction that it was watching him, and then it almost communicated with him through the mind, telling him that I know you can see me, in that kind of way. So it didn't seem like it was a bad encounter, like this thing wasn't doing anything horrible or harassing him, scaring the daylights out of him. It was just making its presence known, and then that was it. So interesting stuff. This was his presumably very first time ghost hunting, and he landed on an all-star. He basically had an encounter with a ghost or shadow person, and at a cemetery, no less. Now, the reason why I say that's interesting is because I've been through multiple ghost hunts, obviously. Those of you that have followed my channel for a good while, several of those have been at cemeteries. Now, despite what you might think, cemeteries are actually some of the least, I repeat, the least haunted places out there. I don't know why the math is that way, but it just is. It seems like ghosts like being everywhere else but a cemetery. I think rudimentarily it's like they don't want to be where they're buried. They'd rather be someplace else. So that's why they're haunting other locations. Because most of the time when I've been on ghost hunts at cemeteries, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. It's dead there, no pun intended. So if you ever go to a cemetery or a graveyard or anywhere else, just go with the expectation, at least based on my experience, you're going to see squat and you're going to hear squat, except once. There was one time, and this was recently, it was this year actually, it was over in Tyler, Texas. It was over for their Paranormal Con. We went to a cemetery, and I forget what the name of the cemetery is, but you'll see a picture of it here. At one point, there's an area there of unmarked graves. These are unmarked because at that time, they were associated with slaves. And so the slaves were given areas there for their plots, but they just didn't have the big setups like the others had there, like regular people had at that time. Like, in other words, those masters, if you could call them that, the ones that owned the slaves, they had the big cemeteries, they had the eloquent grave sites and so on, but the poor slaves got nothing. And so because of it, their area there is supposed to be pretty haunted. And so when I was there at that spot, I didn't see anything, but I did hear like a strange, almost like hiss, like it was towards one direction. And then when I told one of the guides there, they realized and they said, yeah, that's an area there that's known for that type of experience. Like, it seems to be one of the more popular areas for haunted encounters. And so I had no idea about this before that. Before I was walking through that area, I knew squat about it. And then that's when I heard it. So you're looking at basically at a picture of that area here. That's the most I've ever encountered with anything involving cemeteries or graveyards. But let me know what you guys and gals think, you fellow ghost hunters out there. Love to hear what your thoughts are on this as well. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.